G'day, legends, and welcome to the Celtic Down Under Podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight are John and Shane. How are you, John?
I'm doing very good. Very good. Just we were speaking off pod. I've just come back from my holidays in Bali, which was lovely. It was very wet, but in that very tropical way. Didn't hold us back. We did a lot. So yeah, I feel very relaxed on my resort holiday and ready to do another year of podding.
Happy days, mate. Didn't get arrested. Even better.
Yeah. That's just good in general, but yeah. For
Always
Bali,
good going around the country. Don't get arrested. You're all good.
Yeah,
Happy
that's
days.
it.
And how are you, Shane?
I'm good, thank you, mate. Happy New Year to you and John and to everyone out there who tunes in. Let's hope 2023 is everything you all want it to be.
Absolutely.
All I have to say on that is good riddance 2022, you dirty, disgusting son of a bitch. Bring on 2023. That was my thoughts on it. But yeah, well, looking forward to the pod for another year. Onwards and upwards, and see the channel keep growing. And yeah, appreciate each and every one of you who tune in every week and support us. We're starting in the right direction, and we appreciate you all. So we'll crack it straight into it. We've got two games to discuss. The first one, Celtic 4, Hibs 0. On a normal week, this would be probably a good 20-minute discussion. I think we'll probably be done with that in about 4 or 5 minutes because we all want to get into what happened at the Glasgow Derby on the weekend. So what I'll do is I'll start off with the lineups for the Hibs game. So it was pretty much as we discussed. Joe Hart in goals, Hatate at right back, as we said last week, Shane. That's what we're expecting. Carter Vickers, Starfelt, Taylor at left back, Moy McGregor and O'Reilly in the midfield. And then it was Kyogo, Abada and Maid up front. Now, overall for me, I'm not the sort who goes into massive amounts of depth when discussing games. It's like what I saw, what jumped out to me. My notes for this game, sitting right there, I have 3 notes for the whole game. That's it. 1, Aaron Moy. 2, how slow is this game? Looks like we're playing on a goat track. And 3, the other note I've got, what's it say again? Aaron Moy. Because both times he scored, I wrote his name down. Happy days. So, yeah, for me, I'm just looking at it going, Moy was immense. Good for him to get his first goal for the club. Yeah, it was stock standard Moy goal, to be honest with you, from what we've seen over the years, Shane. He doesn't really hit the doesn't really do too special. He tends to keep it as simple as possible and just does his job, which was good. Maeda's goal gets that header off the crossbar from a couple of meters out, and you're like, no, what are you doing? And then he hits that absolute worldie that he put in. That'll probably be in the top 5 goals for the team for the season. Let's be honest. We've had some already had a few good ones, so I don't really want to go judging them or playing them off against each other at this point of the season. That's for later in the year on future podcasts. And then you got Moy with the slowest run-up ever on a penalty, and then Kyogo with his goal later on off an inch-perfect pass again. So, yeah. What was your overall take on the game, Shane?
Look, I thought it was a really good performance overall. I thought as a team, it's funny. It's like I said last week, it's a little bit of a tricky place to go, and we don't have the best record there, particularly recently. You know, we've had a lot of what you call sort of banana skin games or results against Hibs, irrespective of where we are in the league. So it always had that air of this will be an interesting test. And I thought overall, particularly early on, I thought they came at us. That opening 10 minutes was pretty back and forth. They definitely put us under pressure, but I thought then we settled, and a big part of that was Moy in midfield and getting control of the game. And, you know, we were raving about him last week against St Johnstone and his performance and how we thought that was probably his best in a Celtic shirt. Well, I think he probably topped that against Hibs. I thought he was just incredible overall, but to get that first goal was crucial for him. And to obviously I know I'm skipping ahead here, but hearing, you know, the actual away end chanting his name at the end, That's pretty remarkable. It's clear they've taken him. They know a quality player, and they know a quality champ too. So credit to those who got involved. But no, I thought we settled well after initial pressure from Hibs, and I thought we sort of played the game on our terms, and we did really well. It was great to come away with a 4-0 win. I thought that goal from Aida. Geez, we've had a few special ones, and I'm not going to play them off now, like you said, Jared. But that's right up there. That was tremendous. What a finish! What a run! What a finish! Overall, look, I couldn't speak highly enough. I think we did really well, and to come on the back of the St Johnstone result, where we put 4 past them as well, really, really good. Really happy with that performance.
I'm going to just jump on something here though. How would you feel if you were a Hibs fan right now? You've dropped 4 against us. You dropped 3 on the weekend in the Derby, Edinburgh Derby. You'd be absolutely fuming, wouldn't you? You'd be wanting to, sack the manager, burn the place to the ground sort of thing. But, they've chopped and changed managers that much. So that's as much their own problem for me. But, yeah, I'll just look at it and go, I think something that was confirmed as well with the movement of our forwards. We spoke about it, I think it was last week or the week before, Shane, about the rumours of Porteous being linked with us. I think that's pretty much done and dusted all those discussions. Any rumours or any potential talk that anyone was thinking about, that's done with after that game. So let's put a line through that rumour. Absolute bollocks coming through on the in the media there. With Moy, yeah, his best game for the club, stepping it up. He's doing well. And I think the World Cup's done him the world of good, as we discussed. Him getting that run of games early in the season, get his legs under him after not really playing for so long. And then when he was in China and then when he left there, to then get in and get used to the system here, to then go away with Australia and to keep his legs ticking over and playing 90 minutes back to back to back to back at the World Cup, when I think if he didn't make the Australia squad and he was sitting on a beach and then coming to Australia and doing his training, whatever, he wouldn't be in the form he's in now. It's the same with Maeda. Those two and Carter Vickers, they've come back and their form from the World Cup has just been onwards and upwards. Let's keep going.
Yep.
What's your overall thoughts on that game, Johnny?
I thought it was a brilliant result, to be honest. As I was saying, I unfortunately missed it because I was in Bali, and I've watched the highlights, and I thought,
it's a tough life, mate. It's a tough life.
Yeah, it was on something stupid. It was like 3:00 in the morning or something in Bali, so I was too busy enjoying my holiday, as you know, it's the time of year for that. But I watched the highlights, and I thought overall, I thought it was. I think Shane's right. I think sometimes those games can be a slip up for us. And it's good that we won so decisively. Great to see Moy. Moy's really coming into form. To the point, and we'll speak to him later, where you could really say he needs to start. He needs to be, not subbed on, but he actually needs to play 60 minutes at the beginning of matches and stuff, because he really controls games. And you can put McGregor further up and all that. But yeah, and I think just as a general comment, I think Hibs fans will be gutted. I think both Edinburgh sides really underperform, and I've been seeing that kind of been discussed on some social media forums and stuff about both Edinburgh sides being, some of Europe's biggest underperformers, and it's probably quite true, to be honest. Like, really most capital city teams dominate or do very, very well. And it's sad to see Hibs kind of. I remember a couple of years ago they were doing, they were third, sitting quite comfortably third, and now they're sort of slipping a bit. Heart seems to have taken over, but good for us. Good result, very good result. And you had an expectation going into the next game that we would continue that form, and we'll discuss that in a bit, I guess.
Yep. So I think the last thing to discuss on this whole Hibs game here was just looking back to the lineups for a second. When we looked at the bench, there was a debut for one of the guys from our B team, Rocco Vada. We saw Rocco out here in Australia. To me, he looks in and about it like he looks like he's ready to make that leap.
Yeah.
And that was the last other thing on my list of things I wanted to talk about on this game was great to see the first, door opening on that pathway from the B team to the first team, with Rocco Vada getting his debut. So that was good to see as well. And if you're follow Australian football down here, in the AFL, they have a thing called the father-son rule. So if your dad played for the club, you're automatically there. So for me, growing up in that sort of sporting environment, I love seeing, second generation, third generation come through and make their debut at the club and break in. So it'd be good to see Rocco get more games.
100%.
Yeah, here.
Andrew Galea in the comments, Hibs should buy some Aussies. They have a few. Martin Boyle's done his knee, even though he's a fake Aussie. Let's be real here. But yeah, get a couple others. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think a lot of teams over in Scotland in particular should keep looking down here because there's a lot of talent in the A-League, and it's a good pathway for not just that, but for Australian players to come over, transition to Europe. They know the language. Australian players are good at physical football. A guy like Keanu Bacchus went to St Mirren. I never would have expected the level of performance that we're seeing from him this season out of him playing over here. He wasn't anything special. Same with Cammy Devlin before he left and went over there. Kai Rao, same deal. So there's plenty of players here. So clubs over there, yeah, they should look. But I think there's probably only maybe one or two in the A-League who would be, the step up to Celtic wouldn't be too big. But yeah, I agree with you. Other clubs should look to buy Australian.
I think, to be fair, I think the Scottish League has quite a healthy demographic of Australian players. I think more so than any other European league. There's definitely a connection there between Scotland and Australia. I think Scottish teams go and look at Australia.
It's because we hate the Pongs.
Yeah,
I'll say it.
Yeah, no, look, it's more the merrier and all that. I think there's definitely, like you're saying, Jared, there's lots of talent down there. But yeah.
We've seen a very recent influx, though, like particularly the last season and a bit. And I think people really appreciate that the Scottish League is a good league to go to. Like it is a good league to get into and to play regular football in. So I actually don't see this kind of subsiding. I think a lot of Scottish clubs will actually look to Australia. Hearts in particular, Kai Rowles and Cammy Devlin in particular. And then you've got Aziz Bayic, Dundee United, and Mark Birighitti. So a lot of Australians have made that jump in the last season and a bit. I think others will see that and go, you know what? We can do the same here. So I don't see this subsiding anytime soon.
A lot of those players that you're talking about there, Shane, as well, those are the sort of guys that 2, 3, 4 years ago, especially the younger guys, would have been looking to sign up for either a team in Holland, a team in Belgium, a team up in Scandinavia, or a second or third division German team and go in there and work their way up, or even go to Turkey and work their way up and then get their next move to a level of league like we're seeing now. So it's actually good to see those guys coming over to Scotland. The whole Brexit thing with work permits is a big actual thing in the favour that's actually allowing these players who haven't played for the national team to go over, get their contract and make their move and develop. So I think there's a lot of things there. There's a lot of players there, but yeah, could be interesting to see what happens in the future. Now, I'm going to use this as my segue to the Glasgow Derby. In the Hibs game, there was a really quick VAR review for the penalty and a possible offside goal. I was impressed by how quick the VAR was in that game, the 2 times I looked at it. In the Derby, it was farcical. Absolute shambles. So what we'll do, we can bring that up anyway, but we'll start off with the Derby. We'll go through our little overview on that. So starting lineups. So it was a 2-2 draw, as we all know. Our starting lineup, Hart, Alistair Johnson came in to make his debut. We discussed that in last week's pod, Shane. We were like, is there going to be any debutant boys in that game? So yes, there was, which was good to see. I think he did himself well. Carter Vickers, Starfelt Taylor, McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatade in the midfield. So Moy dropped out, and then Forrest came in, which was pre-game. Twitter was going ballistic over that. Kyogo and Maeda up front. Now, we look at the bench, and you've got Giakoumakis, Abada, Moy, Jota, Kobayashi's in the squad. Bernabei's in the squad. Abelgard, Bain. So he was in. So that meant mental blank. Our other goalkeeper, Segrist. That's the one. I don't know. Just lost it then. He was out. I think he was out crook because there was a lot of sickness going through the team apparently. And Juranovic on the bench. Now, overall, when you saw that lineup, what was your thoughts on it, John?
So there was definitely some surprises, and but overall, that was pretty much what I expected. Surprises, obviously, being Johnson getting the debut and Forrest starting, but everything else pretty much was I think anyone would expect the rest of the players to be starting and stuff. Forrest is an interesting one for me. I think I read somewhere some post that said that Forrest is the most in form goal scorer we have currently. So something like 94 minutes a goal or something like that. I don't know. I think if we can go through the team quickly, I think Forrest had a really poor game. I think Forrest needed to come off sooner than he did. I definitely I thought Maeda played very well. I mean, obviously he played very well. He got an absolutely brilliant interception for his goal. But he's definitely getting a form. Yeah, immense is probably a much better word. I think he's definitely seeing some of the criticism that he's had recently. He's is clearly showing that that's not true. It was just a dip in his form. We've definitely seen the best Maeda again. Maybe the World Cup did his confidence some good as well. You never know. Japan did very well in the World Cup, so he's played in a slightly different position then. But he's definitely taken that in his stride, and he's bringing that form back to Celtic and stuff. And it's good to see. I thought Hatate had a very good game. I thought O'Reilly completely disappeared in the game. Completely disappeared. Not one for me at all. Needed to come off far sooner than he did.
Can I jump in here quickly, John, for a second?
Of course, go ahead.
On that point there, Matt O'Reilly, his form has been pretty average lately. I'm not one to throw a player under a bus, but he's been pretty average. I think since he dropped back to cover McGregor's position, he hasn't been, once McGregor's come back, he hasn't really adjusted back to where he needs to be up the pitch. So I look at it and go, with the form Moy is in, and we were talking earlier that Moy needs to start, and with O'Reilly being in the lack of form he's had lately, that coming up on the weekend, it needs to be Moy starting in the midfield with McGregor in front instead of O'Reilly. That's my take on it. But back to what you were saying.
No, I absolutely agree with that point, to be honest. And I think what we might have had with in replacing Rogic, we might have just bought another Rogic, which is it takes him a couple of games to get back to that sort of level that we need him to be. But yeah, O'Reilly's not adapted at all. I totally agree to the change of position. And he was lost in the game. I very much thought he had a very poor game. And I hope he sort of takes that on and does better later, the next couple of games coming up. I thought McGregor played well. I thought Taylor before he got injured, and it's a hamstring's a hard one because he's going to be out for a while now. But I thought Taylor's was very, very good before he went off, which is a shame because hamstrings a couple of weeks. Carter Vickers played great. I think a couple of mistakes, but really not that much. I thought Johnson for a debut. There was another player we had that had a debut against Rangers and played fantastically as well.
Yeah, it was Juranovic last season when he played at left.
Was Juranovic? Did Jeremy Tolja not have a debut against Rangers as well? Was it not and he had a decent game and then he just disappeared and was shy. But yeah, there you go. So maybe that's just the blessed position then. So and then we get to problematic boys for me, which was Starfelt. I think apart from his obvious, we're definitely going to talk about it. But apart from his obvious mistake, had an okay game. He's pretty decent. But really, really shouldn't have been doing all the acrobatics like that, sliding about in the box. And then Hart again made some good saves, but what on earth happened there? And it really gave them that one mistake they changed the game completely, which I'm sure we'll speak about more as well. But yeah, I think overall overall all the boys did okay, but we as a team we really underperformed. We have to take that on the chin, and we didn't play well at all. First 20 minutes ish, yeah, fine, okay. It looked like it was going to be one of those games where we were going to absolutely whomp them, which was quite fun to watch. And then one mistake from Hart, and the crowd gets a lot of confidence. The Rangers players get a lot of confidence from it, and all of a sudden we're making mistakes and we're doing silly passing. Actually, both teams' passing was terrible, but just that one mistake changed the game entirely, and we were really on the back foot for the rest of the game.
I hear what you're saying, John, but I don't think it was that one mistake. For me, I think it was 3 or 4 things working together, because Forrest coming in, I thought made sense in terms of, okay, we're debuting Johnson. We don't know how he's going to go. It's not going to get much tougher for him in Scotland than debuting away at Ibrox in the Glasgow Derby. He did well.
And up against Ryan Kent, who had a very good game as well.
We got some comments here. So Johnson made some good tackles, but the right side didn't work. And that's the first point that I was going to make here, is that so the right side wasn't working, but I can understand why Forrest come in, because he tracks back. So him being in that position, knowing that he can play as a wing back and he can track back and help, and will do that defensively. If he's going to come in and do that and help out, I thought, okay, I can understand the logic behind that. But then you had that Hart situation thing happen, and it's like, gives a bit of belief to their crowd. Oh, we can get on him. Sometimes you just got to hoof the ball, right? And then on top of that, then you put Taylor going down hurt. And instead of bringing on Bernabei, Ange goes to bring Juranovic on, who made his debut at Ibrox at left back last season. So he's done that exact tactic and that exact sub before and had him in that position. So you can understand why he would do that. You would also understand that if you've got Johnson on one side, who hasn't really played it was his first game, hasn't played for us before, he's not going to understand about when to invert properly, and all the stuff you work on the training pitch is one thing, but actually getting on the field and going, okay, in this situation, I need to be an inverted fullback. In this situation, I need to hold my shape. In this situation, I've got to cover the runner. That sort of stuff, it's going to take him a few games to get up to speed. And then you go, so if you're going to have him on one side, you're not going to want to put Bernabei on, who's had the same issues at times during the season at left back to replace Taylor. So by putting Juranovic on, who looked like he's just been on a jolly for the last 2 weeks celebrating his efforts at the World Cup and just looks completely out of it, that completely threw off the balance on the left side as well. So now both of the sides of the pitch were pretty trashed. And Juranovic was out of position for both of their goals. And a bunch of people are saying that they don't really see much of an effort there or place for him. And Edward Y of Oz is saying GG and JJ will not be missed. And Andrew's always the no dickheads policy. If you don't want to be here, doors over there.
I think that's a harsh comment. I think they'll definitely be missed. I think the talent is obviously there, right? They are both very, very good players. And if we had any other situation, we would want them to stay. We would always want them to stay. But as you were saying, Jared, if the players don't want to be there, then Andrew's just not going to waste his time. Why? Celtic is an elite top tier team, right? Just because we're handicapped by the league we play on, but it's just one of the biggest, right? If you don't want to be at that level, then there's no convincing in the world that will ever change your mind to get you to stay. If you don't see it, you don't see it. Then cheerio sort of stuff. I had heard that Juranovic might have had a bit of a head cold as well. Like you were saying, Jared, there's a bit of the flu going around the team and stuff, which I see if you just believe the rumor, right? And it just is true. It does make sense logically. If you're fit enough to be on the bench, you're fit enough to be in the team. And I don't understand why you would debut Johnson if you have this World Cup bronze winning player who's ready to go and he's healthy enough and he's fit enough to be on the bench. You just play him, right? He'd get it. So obviously, I see that being a bit more sense. I guess I'm giving a bit of a benefit of the doubt because I think he had a very poor game when he came on. But maybe that's because he just had the cold, and that makes sense, doesn't it? I think so.
Yeah, well, there's a difference between being fit to play and being fit in general. Like I've been crook since just before New Year's, right? If I was a footballer right now, I know that, okay, I may not be contagious. I may be able to sit on the bench and help my teammates out for 30 minutes at the end of the game if need be, but I'm not going to be able to play a full 90.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if Shane was a new guy into the squad, he's a new guy into our pod, and he's able to jump in and be all running for the full 90 minutes, just get it done, you're going to go with him.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense.
I think, if you believe the rumor, it makes sense. It's logical.
But Shane, me and John have been talking for a bit, so over to you, mate. What's your thoughts?
Just slightly off topic, just because you mentioned the running. I had to run for a train last night, and I reckon I ran for maybe 5 minutes. And I've forgotten just how unfit I've become. I was completely ruined for the rest of the night, even after I got home. So
seeing stars, passing out.
Yeah. Just coughing up a lung. So running's not for me. It was a great analogy, but in real life, it's not for me.
No. I'm just going to say this now, though, just in case Vinny jumps on and watches this later because he's not in the comments. Vinny, you owe that man a foot rub.
I'm going to send this to him. Thank you.
Had to be said.
Oh, dear. All right. Look, you guys covered off most of the key points I had. Those are a couple of things that I'll add to that. Agree that we did start well. Obviously Sean's mentioned before about how we get an early goal. Oh, dearie me. Hello to Vinny. Should mention that Vinny and I caught up to actually watch this live, so it was actually good to bounce discussions off Vinny. So a couple of things I'll come up within the notes. So I actually bounced through Vinny at the time. So good on you, Vinny. You're a good man. So I thought we started well. Getting that early goal was crucial. And like yourself, John, I thought we're probably on here. We're probably going to go on and batter them, or at least, put a few past them and maybe not have to worry too much. I think the Taylor injury was a pretty big factor in what unfolded after that. I think we've all come to appreciate how important he is to not only our squad, but our starting 11. And I think his absence really underlined that. I felt him actually going off was a key factor in what then unfolded after that in terms of our performance. And Jared, I think you touched on it really well about Juranovic and Bernabei. I'm not too sure. I'll say Bernabei. Tomato. Yeah, I agree. It's you've got Johnston starting his first game. He's literally just getting used to the system. You've got Bernabei, who we know obviously maybe hasn't completely become used to the system. So having them both on at the same time, you run that risk of two fullbacks not really adhering to the system you want. So I think your explanation of putting a Juranovic on is something I hadn't thought of, but when you mentioned it, I think it makes total sense. It's such a pity that he had such a poor game, and he really did. That was a really poor performance from him. And I think slowly after Taylor went off, we were poor more than they were good is probably what I want to underline. I listened to Sean on the Axon podcast who did it with Paul, and I agree with a lot of what Sean said. I thought we were poor and our performance overall wasn't very good, but it wasn't as a result of them playing well. I don't think they played us off the park. I don't think they played particularly well. I think they just did certain things at certain times a little bit better than us, but overall we were more at fault for our performance. We just looked generally flat, as the game wore on a bit, particularly the second half. I thought that start to the second half, they probably came out as we'd or as maybe I'd anticipated they'd come out at the start of the game. And that second half, they kind of really pressed on and we looked all over the place. And it took a bit of time to regain any sort of composure. And a big part of regaining that composure and getting a foothold in the game again was the substitution of Moy. I thought Moy was pretty important when he came on, just getting on the ball and then just getting some sort of control in midfield. I also thought Abada had a good game as well. He might not have got involved as much, but I thought he looked threatening when he came on. Stats might not show that he did too much, but he just provided another option. And, I'm sure but it's the last thing Barisic probably wanted to see. So towards the end of the game, as it wore on, I thought we probably were the ones that looked more likely to actually nab a late winner more than anything else. But overall, fairly flat performance in the end. But it's a little bit of a cliche. Good teams find a way to grind out results when they're not playing at our best. And we did that, in a pretty hectic and cauldron-like environment. We were able to come away with a result when we played relatively poorly by our standards. And I think we can hang our hat on that at least. In terms of individuals, I thought Cameron Carter-Vickers was probably our best on the day. I thought he was very good overall, but particularly late, a couple of crucial goal-saving tackles or challenges that were really important. I thought Maeda, obviously the comments before about him being immense, I thought he was. I thought he worked hard constantly. It was good to see him get that early goal, just continuing his rich moment form. But overall, his work rate's immense, as was alluded to, and I thought he was really good. Hatate is probably the best in the midfield, to be honest. I thought he was looking good. It was a pity that he had to go off, but obviously Ange wanted to keep both or have both Kyogo and Giakoumakis on at the same time, and in the end that proved to be pretty fruitful. So credit where it's due on that substitution.
On that chain, just quickly, where a lot of people are talking out like, oh, Ange butchered it early with having Forrest in and all this sort of stuff, and bad sub with Juranovic in. Well, the yin and the yang here is, okay, those may have not been everyone's best ideas, right? Or they may not have agreed with it, but the subs Ange made, as you've just said, Shane, bringing Hatate off, keeping Kyogo on, bringing on guys like Jota at the end with that chase down of that loose ball to knock it back so the cross could come in from Moy, I think it was, for Kyogo's goal. Like, the subs he made to fix it later on, and once all the subs had been made, we had a lot more running the legs and we had a lot more talent on the pitch than they did.
Yeah, absolutely. And and the O'Reilly one's interesting. Well, actually, I'll go to Johnston for a second just to comment and pretty much back up what you said, Johnny. He had a really good game for a debut at Ibrox in that kind of atmosphere, if you will. In a system that it does take a little bit of time to get used to. I thought he was really, really good and deserves a lot of praise for that. I thought he was definitely in our better player category for sure. O'Reilly's interesting. I didn't think he had a particularly poor first half. I thought he was okay in the first half. I thought he was actually doing a couple of little things quite well. Second half, though, and he wasn't alone in this, but second half he most certainly disappeared and he had no involvement. It's interesting with their midfield. They obviously have Lundstrom and the other chap's name escapes me at the moment.
Is it Tillman? Is that who
no, the two holders or the two sort of defensive ones.
Kamara.
Yes, thank you. So obviously we've seen before, and I remember this distinctly from the Scottish Cup or the Cup semi-final, having those midfielders, actually those bigger body midfielders actually, press up on the 2/8s or the 10s and actually get physical with them. So I thought having O'Reilly there as a bigger body might actually be a better option for that. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. And when he actually got subbed off, we did look a bit better with Moy. Not so much like for like, but Moy actually getting on the ball. So I didn't think he was particularly poor in the first half, but definitely second half he went missing.
I'm just going to say a couple of things here. There's also a third big body midfielder that came off their bench and got a yellow in Ryan Jack that they throw in that situation as well.
Yep.
But the way O'Reilly has been playing, I'm not beating into the guy, right? But that sort of game on the weekend, that's where I'll be like, with the form O'Reilly's in, I'm like, where's Tom Rogic? Why did we let him go? To me, that's what jumps out at me. I see that and straight away I think, wish we had Rogic or a Rogic type. But anyway, we don't anymore. I'm going to bring up a comment here, a couple of comments. I'll bring up one from my missus so that, because I'm good like that. Good work, lads. And then Michael in the comment says, the fact that Celtic underperforming, despite Celtic underperforming, we're still 9 points clear. That Kyogo goal well and truly shut them up. You saw them; they were up and about. They were jumping around like, "Oh yeah, we're going to close the gap here." Blah blah blah. No, we played like absolute rubbish, and you're still 9 points. Like,
I mean, look, if if you take everything into account, right, it's that type of performance that will win you a league. When you're shy and you still take something away from a game, is how you win a league. So I guess we just take some you take some games on the chin, didn't you?
Well, I thought they were quite rattled early. Like, they were
They were.
particularly just remembering back to a couple of the decisions that were given against them and the kind of overreaction. Even seeing, and I hated seeing it, but seeing Morelos go up to Taylor while he was injured on the ground, which was just, absolutely pathetic. Walk away.
Hole.
But it just looked like they were rattled.
Got booked. He never got booked.
Staggering. He should have been booked for that. But it's just
Immediately.
they looked rattled. They looked like they were a bit shaken. So that's what gave me a little bit of confidence to say we might go on with this from here. They just don't look like they're there. Whereas obviously what panned out eventually, we sort of, I guess, fell away a little bit, and we ended up with the result we did.
All right, last thing to talk about on this game, because we could keep going for another 40 minutes, no problem, I reckon.
Wow. We got two big ones to talk about. All right.
So, the question here, are we playing basketball? Because Connor Goldson clearly thought we were, and so did old mate in the VAR box who didn't tell the ref to beaten to go and check it out. Was it Willie Collum as the VAR?
Yep. That was.
Absolute shit show. Like, okay, their penalty that they got. Yeah, Sakala stepped on Starfelt's foot that he was dragging. Shouldn't have gone down in the box. But if that was on us, I would have been wanting the penalty. So no arguments on that front. Where I have the issue is on two fronts. One, apparently there was two handballs. I only really saw the other one. But Goldson with his hand up looked like he's getting ready to pass a basketball away. That clear as day, unnatural position, outside the silhouette, should be a penalty every day of the week. The other thing is, say if we didn't score, if Kyogo didn't get that late goal, would there have been, was it 6 or 7 minutes of extra time in the second half? No chance.
Yeah.
So, and we score it, Kyogo picks it up and runs it straight back to halfway to go for the winner. So it's not like we celebrate in front of crowds and put extra time on top of it. So apparently the club is reaching out to get for some questions. Enough's enough. They've got to declare their loyalties, all referees. We all know it anyway, but it's got to be more like England.
Yeah.
Who did you grow up supporting? Okay, you can't do games for them or games involving their biggest thing. I know that's going to take away a lot of referees. So bring them through. There needs to be more referees anyway. The same guys, if they're this bad, then clearly not everyone could be worse. People need opportunities. Get them over there. Give them a chance in the lower leagues if need be. Bring the refs through because, yeah, it can't keep happening the way it is.
Look, I'm just gonna, I don't want to burst any balloons, right? But just to give context to the ref and stuff, and we could talk about this for ages. The problem with the referee and stuff is that we only have a very small group. But see, when you get right down to the grassroots stuff, nobody wants to be a ref. Literally nobody wants to be a ref. It's very hard to convince players or supporters to become a ref with the amount of abuse that refs get when you're talking that you're playing at the lowland leagues or the highland leagues and the League 3 and stuff, when it's crowds of 600 to 1,000 people and you're literally like you could lean over the barrier and touch the linesman, and they're just consistent abuse from fans. Consistent abuse, all sorts of names under the sun. Any young sort of person that wants to get into reffing just gets disheartened and moved on. It's a whole systemic problem with the reffing in Scotland. It's not just the nepotism and the favoritism. It's way deeper than that, and I think the SFA understand that, but I just think they are unwilling to even fight that titan and do something about it, and it needs to be done. And I think loyalties is a good start, but I mean, I'm always a little bit skeptical. I always feel like, you might support Rangers, but you might just say, oh, well, I support Motherwell or I support Hamilton or, because I live there, so I've always supported them. And you still.
I'm a Killy fan because I'm from Ayrshire. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. All of that stuff. And I think they'll just end up reffing games for Rangers anyway. So it's far more problematic than just a lack of people going to VAR and stuff. But I do think it is such a big issue when you have the likes of Ali McCoist and Andy Walker on Sky Sports saying stuff like, well, who's reffing the game then? Is it the VAR ref or is it the one on the pitch? If you've got those people saying that there's something wrong with reffing in Scotland when it's the Celtic Rangers game and it's a decision that goes Rangers' way, yeah, there is big problems.
I'll bring up some comments here. So, Michael Ross, I've only just calmed down now. It's at the stage where VAR proves they are cheating. Michael Ross, again, let's be honest, it's been happening for over 100 years.
Exactly.
And it's always the same small group of officials. And there was a comment from Liam, get them in from Iceland again. If we have to do it, then so do it. And how the guys in Tassie, CSC as well, legends.
The other big VAR decision, I guess, was the one that I don't know why it never went to a review, but Starfelt's tackle as well. Not actually, it's a discussion, but he actually never fouled the player. Sakala stood on Starfelt, and a penalty was immediately given. And I don't know why that never went to a review either. I mean, the decision was given instantly, but surely that's, you have to foul a player. You actually have to foul a player to get a foul in the penalty box.
I thought their penalty was probably there. I trust me, like looking at it in hindsight, I see what you're saying in terms of that. But like when I first saw it, I thought, oh, that's a pen, like clear as day. When I first saw it live, I thought, oh, he's clipped him now. It didn't look that way. Look, I assumed it was checked, and then VAR just said no, we don't see a clear and obvious error, and just let it go. Look, I wasn't too frustrated. Yeah, sorry, can't speak all of a sudden. Words, or I know, right? English. I wasn't too frustrated with that one. Like Starfelt just goes flying in. He gives the ref the option to do that, and
I mean that. Yeah, I agree with that. 100% agree with that.
Yeah, the one that frustrated me, obviously, was the one that's frustrated probably everybody, which is, you say basketball. I thought from one still that I was seeing, Jared, that looked like he was doing like a volleyball set. He's just getting up set, put it up there and waiting for someone to go and spike it. There's a great shot, actually, of...
There you go. Andrew agrees with you.
Yes. Good boy. There's one good shot actually of sort of where you can actually see it hit his hands, and it's the front on shot, and you can just see McGregor behind him, and the look on McGregor's face is like, oh, isn't that what I'm meant to be doing? Like, that's my job. Oh, look, it's incredibly frustrating. I'll try and keep this brief. Obviously, there's comms between VAR and the on-field ref about the potential miss. I actually learned something. I ended up looking into this. I always thought that if the VAR radioed down and said, I know there's a conversation, but if the VAR actually says, no, we think you've missed something, you should go and check it, the actual on-field ref still doesn't actually have to take that. So the VAR can radio down and say, look, we think you've missed this. We think this is an obvious error. But if the on-field ref is adamant, he doesn't actually have to go to the screen and view it. I actually thought if the VAR came down and said, look, we think you've missed something, you should check it, that it was almost an obligation that they'd have to go and check it. And then they could maintain their decision. But reading into it, it doesn't seem they have to. If they're that adamant about it, they can go, no, I know what you're saying, but I disagree. And so I couldn't, on the basis of what we saw on the weekend, tell whether it was the on-field ref choosing to ignore the advice from upstairs and say, no, I disagree with you, I'm not going to review it, I'm happy with my decision, or whether it was the VAR saying, no, sorry, there's actually no clear and obvious error here. All right, so I couldn't really tell where the fault of blame goes. It doesn't really matter who it was. It doesn't matter who decided. It's ridiculous and beyond ridiculous that they didn't go and look at it, because that is as clear a day of penalty as you'll see. And this is where VAR this is where I'm saying bin it. This won't happen, by the way, but bin it, get rid of it, throw it away, put it in recycling, whatever. Just get rid of it, because the whole point of VAR is to catch the clear and obvious errors and to correct them so that they don't stand. And if you've got a system that allows this kind of decision to remain and not be fixed, there is simply no point having the system. Get rid of it.
100%. And it goes into what we were saying before as well with the ref and stuff. Is all we really want is some transparency, right? We just want a process to stick to when situations happen that could be rectified. That's all we want, and that's how we eliminate biases, right? That's the whole. That really goes into the question of getting more refs and other stuff. Do you remember when remember in the A League when they did the at least spectator fans who watch it on the TV can actually hear the conversation between the VAR and the on-field ref. They can. Why don't we just start? Surely that's something we should be petitioning for. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about,
won't let it happen, John. That's what it is. Referee integrity.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It would make a huge difference, because that's the level of transparency that we're missing. You know, it would be, you and I would love to be a fly on the wall of that discussion to know what that whole frame around that decision was about, in terms of what they're actually talking about and who's saying, no, it's not a clear and obvious error, and why that is. We need that kind of stuff if the system's going to maintain. Like, I'm totally against it now. Like, you won't ever get me to the point where I'm backing it and saying we can use it. I think it's not up to scratch for what we need.
Completely agree.
And it's very, very frustrating to go through this repeatedly. And I mean, if you want to break down specifics, we've seen the Michael Smith handball not given. We've seen Bernabé jump in the air and the ball hit his trailing arm whilst he's actually coming down after leaping in the air, and that's a penalty. Yeah. We've seen the ball pinged at O'Reilly with a split second, and which, his arm is tucked into his body, and that's given. And then you see Goldson literally, pulling up to shoot three. Basketball reference for everybody out there. And, that's ignored. And
the rules are completely ignored, because I can completely understand. Look, if that was against us, and I had this was a discussion where Carter Vickers was shielding his face because the ball was about to strike him in the face, and he's pushed it away from his face, right? And then a penalty is given, we'd all be fuming, right? Because all he's done is he's protected his face. But the rules are extremely explicit now, which is if the ball hits your hand outside of that silhouette, it's a penalty. That's that. It just is. And that's why all these other stupid things that you're describing, Shane, have also been given as penalties, because it's outside of this quote unquote silhouette. And the fact that the VAR is not even, what's the point in it? It just seems like a time waster. It completely seems like a time waster that's not actually benefiting us or the standard. It's not benefiting the standard of Scottish football at all. It's a hindrance now.
Yep. Agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And that whole transparency of the discussion hearing the VAR official and the ref, I would like to hear a conversation that's beyond just like, what time is the next lodge meeting, and are you wearing your colours, what sash are you getting on? I want to hear actual football conversations as well. That would be quite good.
All right, let's leave it there. I've got one topic left that I want to bring up, one comment here before we get on to the next topic. So, Michael, have the Huns had a penalty awarded against them this season?
I ain't got a clue.
I've got the stats here.
All right, go on then.
So, Premiership penalties won this season, and how many came after VAR, right? So, Killy has had one, and Ross County has had one for the season. Hibs has had two. Those three teams have got one penalty after VAR came in. Celtics had two for the season, both after VAR. Dundee United 3 for the season, one after VAR. St Johnstone 4, and St Mirren 4, with 3 of them coming after VAR came in. Motherwell 5 penalties, 1 after VAR came in. Rangers have had 5 for the season, 3 after VAR came in. Hearts have had 8, and Livingston have had 8. 7 of them have came after VARs came in. And Aberdeen's had 8 penalties for the season, 4 after VARs come in. So that's how many you're taking. Now, penalties faced this season, so how many you've conceded and how many after VARs came in. Aberdeen have had 8, and they've conceded 8 for the season with 5 after VAR. St Mirren have conceded 8, 3 after VAR. Hibs 7, 6 after VAR. St Johnstone 6, 3 after VAR. Celtic 5 penalties conceded, all 5 after VAR.
Mm.
So before VAR, we had no penalties for and no penalties against. Hearts 5 penalties, 4 after VAR. Motherwell 3, all of them after VAR. Killy 3. Dundee United 3. Both those clubs have got 2 after VAR. St Johnstone 2 penalties they faced, 1 after VAR. Ross County 1 penalty for the season, none after VAR. So after how many games have we played now? 21 games or something for the season? Well, not quite that many, but how many games we played? Rangers 0 penalties conceded for the season.
Yep.
There it is. So we always joke about penalty ranges, but it's the lack of penalty ranges as well, which is a massive factor.
It's part-time refs and who just aren't using the resources. They're not very well educated at it. We can all see it. We're all in it. We all experience it all the time. It's our lives, right? And they're just not a very good standard. So they're clearly saying, they clearly feel, in my opinion, that if they get a VAR decision, they have to go against what they thought it was. I've not seen a decision where they've gone, I've looked at the board and I'm sticking to my original, when it comes to a penalty, and I'm sticking to my original decision. They almost feel like it's a guarantee, red card decision. Oh, it's got to be a red card because I'm up at the board now. So I'm up at the screen. I've got to give a red card. That's just shit reffing, basically. That's just bad reffing.
Yeah.
Which we all know
All right.
anyway.
So, well, there we go. Final points on this. It's a joke. It says it all about the stats I just read out.
Yeah.
I don't want to be talking about VAR again next week, but more than likely we will be. So we apologise in advance. That shows how much faith I have in these referees.
It's the VAR season, let's be honest.
What I'm going to do quickly, before we jump on to our final major topics for the podcast, those watching on YouTube, our merch is in. The Celtic Down Under hoodies and T-shirts are now available. I will share the link on our social media and everything. Actually, I can put it up on the screen, I just realised. If you jump on to www.celticdownunder.square.site, T-shirts, male T-shirts, female T-shirts, unisex hoodies, and I've ordered the hoodies are the super thick ones, so they're nice and warm over in Scotland. It's the middle of summer here, and I'm wearing a hoodie because it's freezing here in Melbourne. They're available. Jump on there. If you like them, place an order. We'll get it shipped off to you. Make sure you check the sizing charts though, because they're specifically printed on demand. So whichever size you pick, that's the size it's coming. And support the show, and hopefully that means in the future we'll be able to get together like once a year and do a live show at a CSC or something. That's what I'm wanting to do, and also donate something to St Vincent de Paul's or something over here in Australia as well. So that's the plan anyway. So yeah, if you want to support us, there's T-shirts on there, there's hoodies available. Jump on. The hoodie's actually quite nice and warm here. I'm loving it. Comfy as too. Now, I'm going to have to share my screen, boys. We'll bring it up. So hang on, I just got to change something. So this doesn't change the look of the screen, because we're going to be talking about the Celtic first team squad. And what we're going to be bringing up is we're going to go through it with the transfer window being open. And we're going to talk about who we want, what areas we think we need to strengthen. So you can all see that. So our current first team goalkeepers are Joe Hart, Scott Bain, Benjamin Siegrist. I think we're set for goalkeepers. Do you guys agree?
I think so. Yeah.
We get to defenders. You got Alistair Johnson, Greg Taylor, Starfelt, Jens, Kobayashi, Carter Vickers, Bernabei, Ralston, Welsh, Juranovic. I actually think that section's probably a little overloaded. Yes, we've got issues at left back at the moment, but I'm thinking realistically with Taylor injured, how long he's out for, maybe a month. Is it time Bernabei gets a Fettington crack in the team?
Oh, he needs it.
And if he does, who's going to be his backup at left back? Off the top of my head, we've got multiple options. Do we do a Neil Lennon and put the captain there? Hell no.
No.
Do we play Hatade at left back because he's proven he can do it? Do we play just Kobayashi, who's played some left back as well? Is he an option?
Do we still have Montgomery in the B team? Or is he away?
He's on the loan list down further on, which we're going to go through. Yeah, Monty's on loan at St Johnson. If we got an option to recall him or Scales that could possibly do it, but they're the only option of guys on loan. There could be someone, but yeah. So realistically, I think Juranovic will move on, which means we'll have 9 defenders for 4 positions. I think that's plenty of cover. Do you think we need to sign anything else, boys?
Well, 2 for every position, and I think we've got that. So I mean, I think after Taylor, left back is our weakest, as you were saying, Jared. But no, I'm pretty happy with that. Obviously, there's some question marks over some of the new boys that have come in. I think Jens is a bit hot and cold, but he's good enough for where we are right now in defence. So no, I think we're quite covered in defence personally.
Left back for me, I think left back's definitely an open discussion, and one that, despite our, I guess, the amount of players or amount of defenders we've got, I still think left back is a position Ange might look to strengthen. Bernabei gets first crack at it, but I know we talked about him obviously not playing alongside Johnston at the weekend. I still think there's some question marks about him. He's been with the club for a little while now, and I don't think he probably hasn't had a fair run at it. I shouldn't be too critical, and this is probably that time. But in what I've seen so far, I don't think he's ever put his best foot forward to make himself a viable secondary option, if you will. I mean, you think of Ralston and Juranovic last season. Juranovic was the clear number 1. Ralston really pushed him, though, in almost every aspect with his performances. We haven't seen the same from Bernabei. So that's why I think left back's definitely something that might still be on the table for strengthening in this window.
I just clicked on that there to see how old he is. So he's 23. So I was going to say there's that immaturity about him with the whole drink driving charge and all that sort of stuff as well. So he's got to, I think, give him the end of the window, get it sorted. If it's not right, then we've got to look at bringing someone else in to compete with Greg once he's fully fit.
The only thing that I'll say on behalf, this is his first chance. He's going to get a decent chance to show what he's worth. He's not going to have to worry about Greg tapping him on the shoulder and replacing him the next week. He's going to get at least a couple of matches where it's him. And so this is his opportunity.
Totally agree.
All right. So that's pretty much your only position there in the back. So then we look in the midfield. Moy, Turnbull, McCarthy, Itaguchi, Abelgard, O'Reilly, Robertson, Hatate, McGregor, Forrest. Realistically, I think 4 of those guys don't really have much of a future at the club. If we can get McCarthy off the wage book, great. The wage bill, get him out. Itaguchi's, all the talk is he's going back to Japan pretty soon. The rumours are Abelgard is off as well. His loan deal is going to be ripped up. And Robertson, he's been flapping his gums a bit online, and Ange doesn't like that. So realistically, I'm looking at it going, you've got Moy, Turnbull, O'Reilly, Hatate, and Cal. So you got, what's that, like 4 or 5 or something like that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 for 3 spots. And then we've got Awada coming in as well. So there's 6 guys there. So we've got 2 for every position. So we're good in the midfield. I think we'll be okay. What do you guys reckon, Johnny?
I think this is going to sound harsh. I think Turnbull could probably go as well. I'm selling him in the summer, John. Oh, is that your head? Right, there you go. Yeah, more logical than me. Yeah, I think I'm mostly worried about midfield. If I'm honest, I think that's probably our weakest area. We only have, in my opinion, 3 or 4 viable players that when they start, I'm going to be dead comfortable with them coming on, and that's Hatate, Moy, O'Reilly, and McGregor. And O'Reilly's very much, we discussed him earlier about his form currently. I would like a bit more options and variety there. But at that amount of midfielders is just too much for the. If we're going to stick to a 4-3-3, then it's just too many.
Yeah, look, I thought you just rattled off the names that you expect to go. And I thought after we got to the end of that maybe we were probably one short, and then Awada comes in. So I think we're pretty flexible there now and at least have enough to see out the season. Look, McCarthy was, mooted to head to Stoke last time. That didn't get done on transfer deadline day. Who knows? They might come in for him again. But with Awada coming in, I think we're okay.
Yeah, I'll look at it and go, look, we've got McCarthy, Itaguchi, Abelgard. Those guys there. Robertson's out of contract end of the season. So whether he goes now or just sits around the background and doesn't play and leaves in the summer, no big deal if we're worried about losing too many numbers. Itaguchi, he'll be going back to Japan. Abelgard, I was been talking for ages that I wanted a big central midfielder. He hasn't shown us anything. He showed defensively he's got it, but offensively he doesn't really suit the system. So I think once Awad is in the club and he's settled in the door, Abelgard will be released back to Ruben Kazan or wherever they want to send him. Itaguchi will make his move. And then if McCarthy hangs around at the end of the season, and so is Robertson for numbers, so be it. But eventually they'll be out the door too. And then we get to the forwards. Giakoumakis, Kyogo, Haksabanovic, Abada, Jota, Maeda. Pure talent alone. That is crazy, the amount of talent there. Now, I look at that and go, Haksabanovic, Abada, Maeda, and Jota aren't going anywhere. Kyogo's not going anywhere. The only question here is Giakoumakis. If he leaves and say we're able to sign Cho and he comes in and it's like for like, we're set. If Giakoumakis wants to leave but we can't get that quality player that we want, I don't want us to drop down and only have the 5 guys there. That's my one concern. But there's another striker in Korea as well that we're apparently looking at. So yeah, Ange will be working on it. But I think our up front we're looking at pretty loaded. What do you reckon, Shane?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the big question mark here is Giakoumakis going. It would be it wouldn't be good to lose him and that kind of different dynamic he brings in comparison to Kyogo or even Maeda leading the line in that terms of that bigger bodied centre forward type player and not have a replacement. So I think if Gigi is on the way out or is heading out, it's crucial we bring in Cho or someone like Cho. So that's the big question mark for me. If we can cover that, then I think we're totally fine. I don't think we necessarily... I think we can add to it if the opportunity arises in terms of maybe another winger if we need be, but I don't think not so much a winger, but someone else to play up front and maybe challenge Kyogo. But I don't think we need that necessarily this window.
Just on that, before you jump in, Johnny, the difference between Giakoumakis and Kyogo, that person in the middle ground who's got the Giakoumakis height but the Kyogo movement is Cho. That's why we all keep talking about him because, as Andrew says here, Cho is big and mobile, which covers off what we need in that guy in the middle there. But if that doesn't work, and say we still need a third striker, Shane's not going to like this comment, but Nick D'Agostino will do the job for me.
No, I like that comment. No, Dagger's has been in incredible form, and it actually struck me a few weeks ago when we were talking about, who we wanted to bring in this window. His name escaped me, but Yeah, he would absolutely be on Andrew's list, in my opinion, and I'd love to see him in the hoops.
Just so that guys know, Nick D'Agostino, his old man used to play for 1860 Munich. He plays for Melbourne Victory in the A-League. He's that sort of player in that he plays in a good pressing system. He's got a good motor and he's mobile. So he could come in. He'd be that, if we kept Giakoumakis and we kept Kyogo, I think he'd be the good option in the middle there if we're to keep these two. If Giakoumakis was to move and we brought Cho in, we wouldn't need D'Agostino type, but he's still a sort of player. But Johnny, what's your take on the strikers?
Well, I'm much similar to everybody else. I will be pretty gutted to see Giakoumakis go if he does. I wish somebody sits down and just explains to him what the type of. I'm sure he does understand the system at Celtic, but I really hope someone sits down and explains to him that, like, Celtic where we are right now is just not going to be like, there's not going to be any star players. You ain't going to be in the lineup every single week. You're not going to be able to. You have to take the opportunities of scoring goals when you're on the pitch, and if you need the limelight or the spotlight, whatever it is, then it's just Celtic's not for you. But I think Giakoumakis is a very, very good player. So I will be sad to see him go if he does. I haven't really got much of a comment on the Korean boys. I believe it might have been Cho, but is it? I can't remember the team that he plays for, but the club that is selling him has pretty much said that they're not going to sell him this window. He's too.
So John Book Hyundai, if I'm not mistaken.
Which one's that we're talking about? Not Cho's team, because they're happy to sell him, and apparently the talk was that he was going to sign with Galatasaray earlier in the week.
Wow,
and then his manager / dad or whatever's come out, and his agent, and said, no, we still want to sit down and talk with Celtic as well.
Yeah, well,
and he actually name dropped us, so there's still hope there.
Yeah, that's good, and I think South Korean league is a very, very good league to be looking in, and I'm really glad we're exploring this side of the world. South America is too difficult to find. There's still talent to be found in Europe, but it's so competitive. It's so hard to get.
Let's be honest, Johnny. You could walk down Copacabana Beach in freaking Rio de Janeiro and find some random Brazilian guy over there, and he'd probably still score you 10 goals in the Scottish League.
Yeah, no, you I mean, you're definitely
it's all the other
wrong.
stuff, the professionalism that goes with it, though.
Yeah, it is, but it's also that's us bought 2 South American boys in Laxalt, or maybe we did buy Laxalt, but I think we loaded it. But Laxalt and Barnaby, and I wouldn't say either have necessarily lit it up completely. And I think that's probably what we can get in a continent where Spain and Portugal and big leagues in Europe have already dominated anyway. So if you're very, very talented in South America, you're immediately going to some of the biggest teams in the world. So maybe that's what, we've just missed the mark a little bit there. So I'm very much pleased that we're exploring the Asian market, which is also an extremely good market. So glad we're looking at the Korean League. Don't know much about the boys. If they're a carbon copy of Giakoumakis, I'll very quickly get over the fact that he's left. But there's always a question mark.
I was just going to jump in. I just saw one in the comments before about, and I'm apologies if I make a hash of this pronunciation. The kid from Rosenborg, Kasper Tengstedt. I don't know much about him. Yeah, I don't know much about it, the way he plays, but I was looking at his stats, which Michael's obviously highlighted. It does look like a likely type from figures alone. So definitely one that wouldn't be too sad if he came in. But
22 years old, 184 centimeters. So he's a bit of physicality about him. It says he can play as a winger and a forward.
184 is quite short.
That's just on 6 foot.
Yeah, no, it's not, mate. No, it's not. Not for someone like me.
Yeah, sorry. That's a giant change. It's a giant.
The thing with this bloke, with that Kasper Tengstedt, right? He was at Midtjylland, senior level, didn't play, went on loan, Nuremberg 10 appearances, 5 goals. Played Horsens on loan, 24 appearances, 3 goals. Last year, 29 appearances for Horsens, again, 15 goals. And then he's gone to Rosenborg this season, 14 appearances, 15 goals. And he's a Danish under 21 international, so probably no old mate Matt O'Reilly.
He's in hot form. But the other one I was going to add to that just very quickly is that, and it came up on my feed today, and it's another Australian suggestion. So Grang Quoll has obviously now signed for Newcastle, so he's over there. And, Eddie Howe indicated he wants him to sort of be out playing first-team football, at least getting opportunities. So I'd love to see him at Celtic. So, Ange, get on the phone to Eddie. Maybe don't talk about the Celtic job and see if you can get Grang up there on loan.
Got a couple of comments to bring up here as well. So, Andrew Galea, too cold for Brazilian players. They can't roll around in frost. Edward Y. Voz, show me the money.
Show me the money. It's quite good.
And Michael Ross, on the subject of Brazilian players, all I'll say is Rafael Scheidt. Yeah, we'll leave it there. Okay, so next thing we want to quickly go through is the loaned out players. What do we got? 10 of them. I'll just say their name and we just go, do they have a future at Celtic? That's all we're talking about here. Do they have a future? Yes or no? So I'll start off. Barkas, no.
Nope.
Connor Hazard.
Yes.
Nope.
No for me.
I'm saying no because realistically, Toby's the next guy coming into our first team goalkeeper rotation. So it's no for him. Montgomery.
Yes.
Maybe.
No.
I'm iffy on him. I could see Monty being a long-term Ralston-esque one where he's had a couple of bad loans and he could still do it. So that's why I'm like maybe because of that reason. Scales. Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Irrigiti. Hell no.
Nope.
Who? Sorry? Oh, Irrigiti. Sorry. I thought you said Birigiti, and I was like, he's on for Celtic. Sorry.
He's back in the Celtic land, okay?
Sorry. Oh, man. Look, unfortunately not. No.
Ismail Sorrow. Nah.
No.
Liam Shaw. Nope.
No.
Mikey Johnson.
No, I don't think so anymore. Nah.
Unfortunately, no.
I'm going to think on that for a second, and we'll go to the next one. Johnny Kenny. He's just gone back to over the Shamrock Rovers. For me, no chance.
Yeah, I think that's probably a sign of no then, isn't it?
They're not happy. I'm pretty sure he played for... Oh, I'm going to get this wrong. Is it Sligo Rovers? And now he's gone to Shamrock Rovers? Yeah, that's gone down well. No, probably not.
Albion Yeti.
Nah.
Don't even bother coming back. If you left any clothes in your house you're renting or whatever, they're gone now. They've gone to charity. Just don't come back.
It's mutual, though. It's very much mutual. He doesn't want to be here.
Mikey Johnson. The only reason I haven't answered on that is because if we were to lose one of our wingers in the summer, are we going to get much better than Mikey to us?
Yeah, I think so.
No, it's like if we say if someone moved on and we had and we got a good bid for him and we could get better, great. Sign them up. See you later, Mikey. Sell him. But if it's like a last minute Dembele out the door sort of thing, and we don't have time to line someone up, or we have lined someone up and it's fallen through. If you had to keep Mikey for another year or 6 months to get you through, then I'd consider it. But for me, I don't think he has a long-term future at the club.
I think that's a really good summary, mate. I reckon that's a really good possibility that happens.
All right. So I'll get rid of that. We don't need that anymore. So I think that's pretty much the podcast done. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. No, we didn't Oh, yeah, we'll do that quickly. Got the game against Killy on the weekend. Let's just give our quick score predictions for it. I'm saying Celtic 3-1.
I think clean sheet, and I'm going to say 4-0.
I'm saying clean sheet, 3-0.
All right. So thanks again for tuning in, everyone. If you haven't done so, please hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching this later on, and whether it's in our Facebook, it's on Twitter, it's you listen to it as a podcast. Subscribe to the Celtic Down Under podcast in your podcast app. We appreciate all the support. Jump onto that website. Get the merch. T-shirts and hoodies are available. Again, it's www.celticdownunder.square.site. Get on there. Get yourself some Celtic Down Under merch. Support the podcast. And, yeah, we'll get off here while we've got all these bots starting to send some dodgy comments through the on the side here. So, final thought, Shano.
I'll try and keep it brief. Obviously, I've talked about this before, Melbourne victory situation. I'm sure everyone's aware of what happened, before Christmas in regards to the fans storming the pitch and, assaulting the Melbourne City goalkeeper. So we've got our first home game after that event coming up this Friday night. And it's come about that the North End members will not be allowed to attend in any capacity. I appreciate strong action was needed and a message needed to be sent, but I know there's a lot of people at that end of the stadium who are very good, passionate, long-term supporters who do the right thing and either weren't involved or weren't even there that night. And for them to sort of be affected by this and not be allowed to go, I find very frustrating and being all tarred with the same brush. It doesn't sit well with me. So just a shout out to those guys. I appreciate it. I feel for you guys. I don't think it's fair. And I'd like to see maybe something change to make it possible for you guys to go. But I feel you guys.
I'll jump off the back of yours, Shane, because those on the YouTube can see it. I'm rocking my victory hat tonight for that exact reason. We're not going to be there. A lot of good fans being tarred with same brush for 150 idiots. So could be a lot of good quality people missing out on their football fix on the weekend and are paid for it. So absolutely sucks, that situation. So A-League, if you don't figure this shit out, you're going to have no fans left. And as Jock Steen once said, football without fans is nothing. So that's where you're at. And Johnny, your final thoughts?
Well, mine's always I'm reading the comments and I've got a shout out to 69mega.com. You're such a great fan. Thank you so much for introducing us to your wonderful girls. My final comment is a music suggestion. As always, I never really listened to much music when I was overseas. In Bali, I very much just read books and chilled. But so I'll go back to one of my old favorite bands, Swedish band called Graveyard. They sort of formed in the early 2000s, 2010 or something like that. But yeah, no, that if you like the old classic rock stuff, so if you like Black Sabbath, Cream, they very much sound like that sort of heavy rock, maybe metal. Then I wouldn't be class as metal nowadays, but so your classic rock stuff, a little bit bluesy if you like that sort of stuff. But yeah, really, really good band. Very easy just to stick on in the background and listen to. You give them a go. Graveyard.
Happy days. Check them out, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Our scandal.